If you have ever wanted to go through a wormhole in outer space, well, now is your shot, because AEG have made this brilliant game called, well, Wormholes, where you fly out into deep space building wormholes, but also transporting passengers back and forward. This game is a 1 to 5 player game, and it takes around 45 minutes to play. I'm gonna show you how to set it up, I'm gonna show you how to play it, so let's just have a look at this, right? First, we need to set out the tile with the space station in the center. Just note that these are double-sided, and one side is for 2 to 3 players and the other one is for 4 to 5 players. Then we need to take the rest of the space board and shuffle them. Again, we need to sort out the tiles that are for 2 to 3 players, and if we are not 4 or 5 players, we need to remove the tiles that have number 4 on them. Next, we need to, at random, place out the space tiles on the table. But we need to place them out in a certain pattern depending on how many players we are. When you place out these tiles, you should be aware of the different difficult levels. If you are new to the game, you should have this side facing up. If you're more experienced, you should have the other side facing up. We recommend you to choose this side instead of the one with the crosses. But if you want to use both sides in your game, you should use the flip space randomizer token and flip it up in the air, just as you would flip a coin. This token will tell you which side you should have facing up when you place the tile. When we place out the tiles on the table, it's important to remember that the planets should be at least 2 spaces away from each other. If you ever at random place out a tile and the planets are closer than 2 spaces away, we simply twist and turn the tiles until they are at least 2 spaces away from each other. Next, we need to sort out the exploration tokens. As you can see, there is a number at the top. All of these have numbers in the top and they should be sorted in a pile with 1 on the top, going all the way down to 8 in the bottom if you are 2 to 3 players. If you are 4 or 5 players, you should also have 9 and 10 in the bottom. This here is a 3-player game, so we go from 1 down to 8 and put them on top of each other. After we have sorted out the exploration tokens, we put the Planets Connect token underneath the exploration tokens. After that, we also need to place out the round tokens. Here we start with 3 on the top, going down to 2 and lastly 1. Then we take the rest of the pile and put on top of the round tokens. Next, each player chooses a ship in a player color they would like to portray as. They also take 3 energy tokens. They take this double-sided pickup token here, again in the same color as their ship, but they also take a set of wormhole tokens. These are numbered 1 all the way down to 5. We should put number 1 in the top and 5 in the bottom. The first player token goes to whoever passed a doorway most recently, or you simply just hand it out at random. This one stays with this player throughout the whole game. Next, we need to set up the passenger deck. These cards shows where your passenger want to go, but also how many points you get for delivering this passenger to this planet. All of the passenger cards are worth 2 points, so that won't be that hard to remember. But we also need to set up this entire deck at the start of the game. If you are 2 to 3 players, you should remove all the cards that has a +4 in the bottom of the card. Once you have done this, you simply shuffle this deck, and now we need to give out some cards to the players. The first player would get 1 passenger card. The second and third player would get 2 cards each. If there would have been a 4th and 5th players, they would have received 3 cards instead. In Wormholes, players take their turns to the fullest, and during their turn they can do a bunch of different things. We have a movement part where you use energy to move, but you also have a bunch of free actions that you can do out on the different planets, but also by placing wormholes. During your first turn, you need to place out your little spaceship, but also your first wormhole next to the space station on the map. And you would do this by taking one of your wormholes and placing it with the inactive side facing up. These wormholes are double-sided. The one that has a more lighter part in the center is the active side, meaning that you should place it like this from the start. And then you simply take your little spaceship and you put it on the wormhole. And you could put it in any of the available spaces next to the space station. Now we have placed out our little wormhole and our spaceship, and we're ready to start playing. And again, this is of course only done during your first turn, at the start of your first turn, that is. Now you have placed out your ship and your wormhole, and you won't need to do that again. So now we can actually start to play. Let's look at the movement part first. Like I told you, you move by using these energy tokens. When you move out on the map, you move by moving your spaceship to one of the available spaces out on the board. Available being spaces that are not having a black background. For example, the spaceship station here has a black background, so you could not move onto that spot. Same thing over here with the asteroids or the planets. You can, however, move onto the same space as another spaceship. And you can also move onto a space that has a wormhole from another player. So if you would like to move over here, for example, you would need to use one energy, meaning that you simply flip this energy token around, indicating that now you have drained this energy and used it to move your ship. During your turn, you do not need to use all of your energy, meaning that you could move one step during your turn and just ignore the rest of your available energies. But you cannot save these energies to a later turn. And that was the movement part. It's quite easy, right? I mean, you move a step out on the board and you empty out an energy. If you want to move more, well, you need to have energy left to spend it to be able to move. And once you have used all your energies, you can't move anymore. But when you travel through a wormhole, it won't cost you any energy. But it will cost you energy to enter the wormhole, but not to pass through it to the next stop. Once you have done your movements, you can start to do your free actions. And there are quite a few of those. When you place out your wormhole, you need to place it on a blank space out on the map that is not already containing another wormhole. But you could place it on a spot where another player is. That would be okay. When you place out your wormhole, you need to take the top token from your stack, either completing one pair or starting a new pair. And players may not have more than one wormhole token next to the same planet. But different players could have their wormholes next to the same planet as another player. Wormhole tokens can never be removed once they have been placed. Once you have managed to place out a pair of wormholes, we now flip them to their active side, indicating that now you have put out a pair, and these ones are now linked and ready to start shipping passengers back and forward. But as you can see at the bottom of the token, we have a little error. This error should be pointing at its matching pair. If a player is the first one to place out their wormhole next to a planet, they will receive the top exploration token from the stack and place it in front of them in their player area for endgame scoring. As a free action, you may also warp through another player's wormhole. When you do this, you jump on the wormhole and then you pop up on its matching pair, meaning that now you have warped through space, jumping through wormholes. But when you do this, the owner of that wormhole will receive 1 point from the supply. A player may warp through wormholes as many times as they wish to during their turn, but they need to perform another action in between the warps, meaning that you cannot pop out here and jump in here straight away. You would need to do a free action or a movement before you keep on warping. A player may always move onto or over a wormhole without using them. So you can warp through wormholes, which is quite cool. But you can also pick up and deliver passages. And that is really the big way of you to score at the end of the game. But how do you pick them up? When you are next to a planet, you can pick up passengers from that planet. Meaning that you should draw cards from the passenger deck. And you will need to draw cards until you have 4 cards on your hand. After you have drawn your cards, you flip your pickup token to the inactive side, showing that you have picked up passengers and cannot pick up anymore. But before you pick up passengers on your hand, you actually have a chance to discard any cards that you have on your hand that you do not feel like you want to keep. These cards are discarded to the space station docks, meaning that next time you stand next by the space station, these are the passengers that you will be able to pick up. And if you are next to a planet picking up passengers to your hand, but you receive the planet that you are already standing next to on your hand, well, this card would also be discarded to the space station docks. And this pretty much makes sense, right? Because if you pick up a passenger that wants to go to the planet they're already at, well, then you just drop them off right away. It just wouldn't make sense. So these cards are discarded to the space station docks. And when you're picking up passengers from the space station, you can actually choose which passengers you would like to pick up from the ones that are faced up in the space station docks. And you can choose passengers from up to 2 different planets. And if you have picked up passengers, you can of course also drop off passengers. But you need to be at the same planet as the card is showing. Meaning that if the red player is transporting passengers that want to go to this planet, and they are now standing next to that planet, well, they can choose to drop off these passengers. And if you have several of these cards on your hand, matching the planet, you drop off every one of them. And then you place them face down in front of you in your play area. And they are now kept secret until the end of game scoring. So that was the big free actions: to move, to pick up passengers, to deliver passengers, or to create wormholes. But there are actually more free actions out on the board itself, because some of the spaces out on the board will give you some free actions. This dotted area here out on the map is called an orbit, and it will let any players within the orbit to freely move to a new space within the orbit. And unlike the other planets out on the boards, here the same player may actually place any number of wormholes around this planet. If you are standing on a nebula space, it will let you move to any adjacent space next to the nebula for free. But it will still cost you 1 energy to move onto the nebula. Next we have the wild wormholes. These will have a number on them, meaning that you can use this wild wormhole to warp yourself to another wormhole that has the same number. And it can be your own wormhole or another player's. And then we have the photon cannons. If you are standing on one of these, they will let you move in a straight line as far as you would like to go, even moving through obstacles. But you cannot stay on the obstacles. You can only move through them. Lastly, we have the black holes. If you end up on a black hole, you need to draw the top card from the passenger deck. And now you will end up next to whatever planet you have drawn. Meaning that in this case, this player won't go too far, but you can choose which adjacent space you would like to end up on. That passenger card is then discarded faced up on the space station docks. When a player is done with their turn, we need to refresh the tokens that we have used. Meaning that we flip over the little pickup token here and we refresh the energies that we have used. Now we are ready for our next turn, but first the other players need to do their turn as well. The game will move on to the player on their left, and then they will do their turn, and so on, until the final exploration token is handed out to a player that places out a wormhole next to a new planet. Then we will see this token, representing that all of the planets now have a wormhole next to them. We need to remove this one as well. And now we come down to the 3 turn tokens. Once we have gone through the 3 turns, the game ends and it's time for us to calculate scoring. When we calculate scores, we need to add up any victory points we have received from other players using our wormholes. We need to add up the victory points on the passenger cards that we have delivered, but we also need to add up the victory points that we have on our exploration tokens. This game is a nice, easy to learn, but quite strategic game. There's really no hostile competition here. I mean, it's all friendly, good, nice competition where you sit down and you try to build your wormholes, you try to place them out in the best way possible, use the free actions as good as possible, and just have a really nice time with your friends creating wormholes. That, my friend, was Wormholes for you, designed by Peter Matt Pearsons from AEG Games. This is a nice, easy to learn, hard to master game. It's good for casual players, but you can also build in your own strategy here, which make it available for heavier players as well. This is a nice game. If you want to know more about it, well, check out the links down in the description and it will take you straight to the pages. It's like magic, isn't it? It's amazing. If you like my video, give it a thumbs up, throw in a comment there, subscribe to the channel, my friend, please, it helps me so much. But most importantly, keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out, my friend.